Alright guys, I got the new Natasha Denona Roxa palette. I love doing these swatch comparisons and I always do them in natural light. So I am next to a very big door. So this is 100% natural light, no ring light, no house lights. And here is the palette. Oh! I did do quick swatches on my arm to see what kind of color story it is, and the swatches look light and happy and bright. I feel like it is giving a very interesting twist to holiday looks, but with like a purple lilac feel. To compare with this palette, I have the Natasha Denona Pastel palette because there is definitely purple in here, and I actually love the purples in this palette. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about the pastel palette, which is kind of odd because this is a very colorful palette and there's like plenty of purples in here. And they're kind of pinky too. So I'm really curious to see how this compares. And then I want to see if any of the mauves in the retro palette are comparable. I have a feeling maybe this pink shade in the corner might be replicated. And then I believe there was a silver too, so I pulled out the Xenon palette as well. And then, of course, everyone's been curious about the Love palette. I did see someone comparing it to the My Dream palette. Should I go get the My Dream palette too? Let me actually go get that one. I grabbed also the I Need a Nude palette just in case, although I don't think there's gonna be anything in here. And I grabbed the My Dream palette, which I also feel like there's not gonna be anything in here, but I grabbed them just in case. Okay, let's first start off with this shade called Dixie. It's a crystal sparkling warm pink with blue and purple specks. It feels very light. Ooh, yeah. I don't see the camera picking up the purple in here though. I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you really, the camera is not picking up the purple shift, but there is definitely purple in here. So for comparison, let's go into the pastel palette because there's a bunch of purples in there. All right, let's take, but I feel like this is a little bit more pigmented. Here they are side by side. Yeah, on my finger, I feel like you can see the purple shift a little bit more. Let's see. Ooh, they are actually, they're actually very similar. What? Wow, I was not expecting that. They are actually very similar. You can't even actually tell that the new one is purple. But from the pastel palette, you can clearly see that it's purple. So I could not even imagine that they would be that similar, but they're very, very similar. The new one definitely does have that warmer undertone because of the beigeness to it. So they are a little bit different, but they look very similar. And I don't really see any blue specks. All right, the next one is a matte. This is her new Silky Matte formula. It feels super soft. And of course, we're gonna compare this one with Love palette one, but I'll also pull up the pastel palette too. Ooh, oh. The one from the Love palette did not swatch well at all. Now I know what she meant by purples are hard. Okay, I went in a little bit more. The purple in the Love palette is not as vibrant as the purple in the new palette. The new palette, I definitely got the vibe of brightness and light and happy. But let's get this purple from the pastel palette and see what kind of purple this is. Oh, that's much lighter. So that is very different. The third shade is called Flutter and it's a sparkling wet effect lilac pink. I can definitely see the lilac in here. So let's look at the swatch. Let's go with this one from the pastel palette called Dainty. Okay, Dainty is way more vibrant, but it looks like the same shade, but more vibrant. Like, I actually prefer Dainty over this new one. This is not what I expected. All right, next one is called Phoebe. It's a silky matte light lilac. It's definitely a very light shade. I don't think anything is gonna be similar to this because it does look really light. In the pastel palette is a bit darker. I mean, it is slightly darker, but I mean, not that big of a difference. Oh my goodness, I did not expect such similarities with the pastel. In my mind, the pastel palette purples were different, but they are like bright and pink leaning. The last one in the first row is called Regal. This one is a metallic vintage rose. All right, so is that gonna have any purple? Shimmers do look similar to me. The only difference is that the very first shimmer is a little bit more sparkly and shifty versus the others are like more monotone and smooth. But on the eyes, I feel like you're not really gonna see that big of a difference. Let me actually go into one of these shades from the retro palette. Out of these two shimmers, like this shimmer is more peachy, but this one is pinky. I think it's gonna be different, but oh, okay. I mean, it's not the same shade, but it's very similar. It's definitely, the retro palette one has a little bit more peach in it. Go back into the pastel palette and see how that shade compares with this one. Color-wise, the pastel palette's color matches well, but when it comes to like the brightness and the pigmentation, I feel like the one from the retro palette matches better with the shade. But you can kind of see even in the camera that the retro one is a little bit more peachy. It's not really something you would call lilac. Next row, we have the shade called Eclipse. And it's a silky matte deep purple. I get the feeling that I'm gonna find this. I get the feeling I'm gonna find this in the Love palette for sure. There's nothing revolutionary about the shade. I've seen this deep purple so many times. Love palette is called Commitment. Commitment is definitely different. I feel like the one from the Roxa palette is more purple, whereas the Love palette one is a little bit more brown. In my Dream palette, we have Edgy. Like, I guess my Dream palette can give you a little bit of purple, which I didn't think of before. Yeah, I can't really find anything to match this purple. I guess I was wrong. Okay, next, let's go into this silvery shade. My finger was dirty with the brown one. I did clean it. Okay. I mean, this one is actually pretty purple. It looked silvery in the pan, but it's purple. I'm gonna try again with a different finger and just put it here. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna find anything like this in the Xenon palette because it's not actually a silver. A little lackluster. And it's actually very similar to the first one. Let's just put it side by side. Other than the first one being a little bit more reflective, they're looking very similar. All right, now let's try out this Huda Beauty imitation here. That's a nice purple. That's a really pretty purple. I mean, I'm not even gonna try to swatch a comparison because I don't see anything in any of the palettes that looks like this purple. This one is definitely different from anything that I have. All right, now let's look into these non-purple shades. We have this shade called Heather. We have this shade called Cerise. Cerise is giving me my Dream palette vibes, but let's see. Here's Heather. And here's Cerise, I don't know. I'm actually gonna go into the Love palette first and grab this shade called Soul. Soul is pretty similar. It's a bit darker and a little bit more muted, but it looks pretty similar to me. This shade Wit looks pretty light, yeah. And Vague also looks completely different. Yeah, I Need a Nude is more muted. It's just not a bright palette, so I don't think we're gonna find anything in I Need a Nude. Shade called Mia from I Need a Nude. Yeah, it's different. Because I was going to try to compare it to this one, but it's actually different. It's peachy. Now that I look at the My Dream palette, I don't know. I don't know if there's a pink that matches that one. But let's go in. Let's try out this Instinct one. Yeah, I don't think we have anything. These don't really match the one from the Roxa palette. These are like way more purpley, whereas the Roxa one is actually pretty pink. I do have to say that the swatches of the new palette for the matte shades is really nice and effortless. Okay, my arm is full, so I'm actually gonna clean this up. But out of the first 2 rows of the 10 shades, how many did we find that are similar? I would say the first one, it's pretty similar. And then like these ones here, they're even similar to kind of like each other. And this lilac one is pretty similar. So I would say 3. So out of the, oh, and then this one here, I feel like it's pretty similar with the Love palette. So out of the 10 shades, I think we can say 1, 2, 3, 4. We found 4 shades, which is actually not a lot. So definitely we're getting some really nice new colors in this palette. But at the same time, a lot of the lilac leaning purple shades are in the pastel palette. So if you're not obsessed with purple, then, and if you have the pastel palette, like that may be enough. Like the only reason why I keep the pastel palette is because of the purple shades, because I love them so much. Whereas the rest of the palette is not that good. The blue shades are not that good in that pastel palette, but I keep it just for the purples. All right, let's go into the 3rd row now. Sweet Pea. Ooh, that one's bright. Now let's look at Concord. Another purple shade. Oh, okay. That's nice and purple. And then we have another purple matte, which looks very similar to the first one, but a little bit darker. That's okay. We have Brink. Oh, that's a pretty shade. It's like a peachy purple shade. I've never seen that before. Peachy purple pinky shade. Pretty. That's a really pretty shade. And then we have this last matte here, Orchid. The swatches of the mattes are great. I'm loving it. So the only place where you're gonna find lilac is literally the pastel palette. You're not gonna find it anywhere else. So, and the only matte light lilac is this one. So it was a little bit darker than the other lilac in this palette. Okay, let's see how it compares to these lilacs. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much spot on. Now this shade was a little bit darker than the other lilac in the Roxa palette, but it's a pretty good match with this one. It's almost identical. So naturally it's gonna be lighter than this one. Yeah, you can clearly see that it's lighter. I don't see a dark purple shimmer like this anywhere. Not even in the pastel palette. So I would say that's pretty unique. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this row is pretty unique other than that one lilac matte shade. And this one is this interesting pinky peachy purpley shade. I don't see anything like that anywhere. I think close is this shifty shade from the My Dream palette. Nope, not even close. Never mind. Darker matte purple. It's not even that dark from the pastel palette. And the purple mattes from the Love palette are very different, I feel like, from this shade. Yeah, very different. Okay, so for the first two rows, I had found 4 shades that were similar. But if I go back, this lilac matte shade was lighter than the lilac from the pastel palette. So I would scratch that. And I would say in the first 2 rows, only 3 shades were similar. And then from the last row, I will say that 1 lilac shade. So overall, it's really only 4 shades that I found from my other palettes. Some other shimmers did feel a little bit lackluster. I guess I shouldn't use the word lackluster. They were just a little subtle, some of them. Here are all of the shimmers together. I feel like this palette is gonna be really deceiving because at times you really do see the lilac, but other times you start to feel like, oh no, I see pink and I see peaches, and it's like your eyes are playing tricks on you. Here are the swatches again with a little bit more color, and I feel like I'm losing my mind because I could have sworn when I was doing the comparisons for the first 2 rows, I saw a lot of lilac, and now I don't see. All I see now is lots and lots of pink, so I'm so confused. Just a few minutes ago, I was seeing so much lilac. And now, like, this looks peach to me. This looks like a pinky peach. This looks pink. I'm so confused. I mean, this one clearly is not a purple shade. Like, I saw that before. But I am like seriously so confused right now, and I don't even know what to tell you. I don't know if the sun went down a little bit and in certain more reflective light, the purple shines through more than in dimmer lighting. I don't know what to tell you anymore, but I guess if you are a fan of both purple and pink, this palette is going to be great for you, and I'm okay with both. So I'm happy to have this leaning either pink or lilac or purple. I like all those colors. So I'm happy with whatever color kind of shines through. So for me personally, I'm very happy to have this palette. I think the packaging is stunning. I love this wavy design. I loved it in the golden palette, but I was not happy with the golden palette ultimately because there were a lot of repetitive shades, but there's not a whole lot of repetition in here. And I know if I ever, you know, want to get ready for one of my Indian weddings that are coming up, and I have a lilac Indian dress, which actually is a color that is really flattering on me and it's really beautiful, I know I can count on this palette to give me a really beautiful lilac look. I mean, this is a really good palette for someone that loves purple. And the thing with the pastel palette is you're not going to be able to create like a smoky purple from the pastel palette because there isn't enough variety of purple shades. Whereas in this palette, you have this purple matte, you have this purple matte, this, and this. You have like, well, these 3 are very similar. They're just different shades. So you can create more of a smoky eye with these 3. This purple and here is actually quite different from these 3. But if you're not really a smoky eye person, then I feel like the pastel palette is lilac enough to satisfy those purple cravings. Overall, I'm pretty happy to have this in my collection. I hope this review was helpful for you guys. I hope you like the natural light swatches, and you guys know I love Natasha Denona, but I was getting super bored with her and now I am happy. Thank you. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe, and also make sure you hit that bell notification. Thank you. Bye.